Hello.
Hello, hello. Whoever can turn on their cameras, please do. It's my continuous ask to our audience during these webinars. It's really nice to see you and some feedback from the audience. Body language counts and smiles, and we also want to see when you are yawning so that we can move on with some topics. People still joining us, so let's wait a second. Okay. Can you write in the chat, please, where do you log in from? What countries? It's always interesting also to see who's in the audience. Greece, Poland, Sweden, Portugal, Turkey. Okay, wow. A lot of Polish people this time. That's a good trend. South Africa, Sri Lanka, India. India always delivers. Norway. Okay, that's nice. Guys, let's wait like 15 more seconds for the latecomers. I will share with you some information. It's the 15th joint webinar we are running with CD Projekt. So this is for me like really rewarding to see that we still so many people interested in what we are doing here. Martin, could you take over admitting people, please, from now on, and I will try to start and kick off. Argentina, Canada, hello guys. I have actually another question for the audience because we were discussing with Martin. Who is joining us today? Are you guys like game devs or are you just game dev enthusiasts who are about to start your journey? If you could just quickly share in the chat, expert or newbie, or rookie, advertising, enthusiast, student. Okay. And that's what I thought, Martin. Mostly students and hobbies. Great. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Piotr Matecki. I'm the head of Futuregames in Warsaw, responsible for opening school here. And this webinar is possible thanks to ongoing support from our strategic partner, CD Projekt. You will be in the hands of Martin Andersson, who is our game programming teacher from Futuregames Malmo. And Martin will do the main presentation. And we have also special guest, Jan Hunka from CD Projekt. Thank you, Jan, for being here with us. And
hi.
I'm really making way to the guys and to the essence, to the substance of this presentation. I just need to steal literally 5 minutes of your time, guys, because this, sorry for the background noise, because this webinar is the way we are doing marketing in Futuregames, and this is the way of attracting people to join us in our school. So let me just quickly go through a presentation that shows how we run things at Futuregames. And I see our students here, Maximilian in game programming, so he can give thumbs up or thumbs down whenever I say the true story or whenever I exaggerate or lie about anything. So first of all, Piotr Matecki, I invite all of you to contact me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to expand my network, so welcome. I'm there to respond to any questions regarding Futuregames. Guys, if I was to use one slide of this presentation, this would be it. It's basically the illustration of our relationship with the industry. We train people so that they are basically plug and play to hire by the companies. And our years-long story of collaboration with Hazelight basically is the best model. It's a proven model, and it's illustration of this interaction we have with industry. So in Sweden, we have organic bond with the companies, and we train people in line with the needs of the industry. Of course, you are aware of the new titles, so it's really rewarding for us to hear that the biggest number of people, senior people in Hazelight, are Futuregames alumni. And we hear it from different sites and different companies in Sweden, because we have 25 years of building brand and building our position hand in hand with the Swedish industry in the market. Futuregames Warsaw is new on the map, so we hope we will be playing this role in increasing and boosting industry in Poland as well. Starbreeze is similar history. The company is taking our interns, and a big part of our education, big focus goes to putting our students on internships and securing them the real life experience from real studios. Again, Warhammer, similar story. So it's just a few studios from many in Sweden who collaborate with us. And in Sweden, we have a very high employability factor, and it's pretty much staying on the same level despite the crisis in the industry. So we are pretty happy with the model we have created. If I was to assign this to factors in our courses, what are the reasons? It's because we learn by doing, our students learn from experts. We are all about networking from day one when you join the school, and we are very focused on building our students' personal brands and giving them visibility and shout out there in the channels. In Poland, we started our journey with CD Projekt as our strategic partner, which translates into us being in a studio's headquarters in Warsaw, but also we get big support in marketing and in getting expertise firsthand from studios experts. The other tool that we use continuously to build connection with the industry and to pivot our students and their success is our advisory board, where we invite industry experts to advise us how we should tweak our curriculum and how we should make our courses even better, so that our alumni will be instantly hired. So this is our goal. We do marketing by promoting our students. So this is my role in Futuregames in Warsaw, but continuously also more and more in Sweden to promote each and every one of our students out there in social media and boost our students' successes. So we try to use our brand, give our brand as a leverage to our students so they can distinguish themselves from other people on the market. We started our journey in Warsaw with 45 students in September 2023. Last year, we were joined by another 86 students. We have 26 different nationalities on site. This is on-site education, so you need to relocate sooner or later, but we are pretty flexible if you're stuck in visa process. We visit biggest events in Poland: Game Industry Conference, Digital Dragons, DevGam, Promised Land Festival, all having in mind networking opportunities for our students. Channels in the school are reserved for our students and their works and their portfolios, so I use it constantly, and our team use it on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We use them to increase the visibility of our students out there. So I dare to say, besides hard skills you gain in Futuregames, this is the other aspects that translates into success in being employed at the end. Our students also use our brand as conversation starter with experts, invite experts to become lecturers at Futuregames. So this is like a joint and synergetic activity that we do to support each other. Just lately, one of our students organized Women in Games Ambassadors Breakfast, and it turned out to pretty big event with 30 senior people, women, joining us this Monday on site in Warsaw. We also have our own brand of event. It's Student Recruitment Week, where we work constantly for a few months to bring on-site and online companies to interview our students. And this is behind the success of internships that are being delivered at the end. So in Poland, we put on our internship the first batch of students from 23, all 30 of them, to different companies and they thrive. They thrive really, and we hear their needs, we hear the company's needs, and we try to be the best matchmaker ever. So with schools all over Sweden and one in Warsaw, we offer different courses. The core are game artist, game designer, and game programmer, and you're welcome to apply to any of them. The new in our menu is game producer course. This is for more savvy people, more advanced with some background in project management, and this is 1.5 years course conducted only in Warsaw, with big support from CD Projekt as well. If any of you, I hope Max keeps his thumbs up, and if any of you is convinced, guys, or would like to know more about courses, please write to join at Futuregames SE, and you will get the instant response. And that would be it from my side. And sorry for stealing some of your time, but this is how it should be, commercials first. But
it's okay.
Martin, I know you have a big presentation there, and
really, oh yeah, huge
presentation and a bit interactive. So we will be asking audience for some thumbs up or some comments. So without any further ado, stage is yours now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Piotr. Piotr is really amazing at promoting our school with these kind of ads for us. And also something that he highlighted that I want to highlight as well is this: it's not just about hard skills, it's about soft skills, which really sums it up really good, I think. Where do I share my screen? Let me see. And then share screen. And like that. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Loud and clear.
Awesome. I will also bring up this thing so I can see you guys. Maybe I want to try this raising hand kind of thing. Is there any way that you guys can raise your hand if you give it a try? Do you have? Sick. So many hands. Epic. Okay, put down your hands. Awesome. That's great. So yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Piotr, for inviting me to do this. It was basically, he invited me over and said, would you like to talk about whatever you want? And I said, awesome. And so I've made a presentation, 120 slides, but don't worry, it's mostly animations and whatever. But yes, so I'm talking about something that I'm super passionate about. But first, I would maybe like to introduce myself. My name is Martin Andersson. I'm the head teacher for programmers at Futuregames. Not just in Warsaw, but I'm the local mentor and teacher in Malmö in Sweden. And I teach basically every site the first year. So that is game projects, that's programming in C#, it's AI, a bunch of different courses in the first year. And then after that, I specialize in the game engine side for the second years. So we have, as part of our education, a specialization course in engine. So I teach that, and we make our own game engine at Futuregames, which is not many educations that offer that kind of specialization to make your own engine. I worked previously in indie for these two companies. I began working at Funrock, making mobile games. And there I worked mostly on tools and stuff like that. It was a MMA fighting game, so there's like a ton of animations. There's You can imagine if you're in an MMA fight, there's like multiple animations that can be played. So there were thousands of animations, and then each one of those could be combined with one another. So that's millions of combinations of animations. So I did tools to make it easier to animate. And then I worked at Funrock in Stockholm, and then I moved to Malmö, and I worked on Oddballers for GameSwing in Copenhagen, which was way more wild west. It wasn't just one role. It's when you work in indie, it's like pretty crazy. You have to be a generalist in everything. You have to do a bit of gameplay, a bit of engine, a bit of tools, a bit of marketing, a bit of QA, a bit of everything, right? So that was super fun. We made this party game, and we released this together with Ubisoft on Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, and stuff like that. And before I worked in the games industry, I studied as well. I did not study at Futuregames, but I studied at a similar education called the Game Assembly. Has anyone heard of the Game Assembly? If we see some hands, maybe.
Me, I heard about them.
You heard about it.
Our sister company right now, right?
Exactly. So we're definitely siblings. I mean, we have TGA teachers at Futuregames, so it's very similar. So yes, I came from the Game Assembly. Very similar education to Futuregames. And then before that, I studied LBS. And if there are any Swedish people in the webinar, you might be familiar with it, or you might even come from that school. And a lot of game devs in Sweden come from LBS to begin with. It's a high school. But anyway, that's enough about me. I want to talk about algorithms. That's really what I'm here to talk about. That's the one thing I decided when Piotr asked me. I was like, algorithms is something I really want to talk about, and the famous people behind the different algorithms that we have. And maybe to clarify to some people who might be newbies or just starting out, which I assume that a lot of people are, or that's the outlook I will have for the rest of the webinar. That's you are new and you want to be in the industry kind of thing. So to explain an algorithm and in the context of this webinar, it's a process or a set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations, especially by a computer. It's a noun as well. It's not an adjective or anything like that. It's an example here is a basic algorithm for division. Not the best explanation of it, I don't think. So let's look at it real quick. So we have 6 flowers in a row. Let's give each flower a number. Let's say that everyone has a position in, well, the number represents their position in this row. I'm saying that if it's an even number, you should be yellow. If you are an odd number, you should be red. Simple enough. Now, let's say that we give all of these instructions that I just talked about. Let's say we give them to a farmer and ask him to plant flowers based on that pattern. Then we get something like this. And I mean, this is on a plane, so there would be some extra rules, but you get the idea. You give some instructions. Every even number should be yellow, every odd number should be red. The farmer, in this case, acts as the computer, and the instructions is the algorithm. And yeah, now we're experts in algorithms. Now we know exactly how they are made. And this is actually how algorithms started out as well. It was not to a computer. You would actually have like a list that you would give instructions. And then that person would be the computer kind of thing. So yes, and I love algorithms so much. They're awesome. They're really what everything is about. And I mean, we hear algorithms being thrown around as a buzzword everywhere as well. Search algorithm this or AI algorithm that, or things like that. But what they are actually and what they do and how when you work together with them, it's awesome, and you can make some really beautiful things. And out of all algorithms, I love clever algorithms. So what do I mean clever? I mean clever algorithms that solve complex issues that we might have, or made up issues that bear no relevance, but we just do it because it's cool, right? Game dev is really kind of like we do all of these fancy calculations and whatever to just get cool things on screen, right? So we do make algorithms that just do cool stuff for us. And here we have some algorithms. We have this tree thing to the top left, which is really cool. It looks like they're using some sort of fractals or something like that. And then there's this guy with a bunch of cubes, kind of look like nanites rendering. I don't think it is, but the algorithm here is really to optimize to get as few objects as possible. We have a classic like maze or dungeon generator as well. And I mean, algorithms doesn't just have to generate things. I mean, we talk about procedural generation that has a lot of algorithms in it, but there's, of course, like problem-solving algorithms like this, where we have the pathfinding from the red dot to the green dot. We have tiles, and then where do we go from there? What instructions should I follow to get to the end? And then sorting algorithms as well. If you've seen on YouTube, it's really satisfying to look at the algorithms on YouTube. But yes, there's one algorithm here I haven't pointed out, and it's this one. And this one is the one algorithm that made me a game developer. It's made me start my journey almost 10 years ago, and brought me to the industry and all of that. I saw this image and I knew that I would program for the rest of my life. So yes, this algorithm is really what I want to go deeper into. So I've talked about in general what algorithms are and that they're useful, but let's actually look at this algorithm in specific. Just by looking at this image, by raising your hand, is anyone familiar with this algorithm? We have 3, 4, or 5. I saw someone react with a laughing face. You've probably seen it, or well, some of you might have seen it, or you might have seen a thumbnail with it. And I'm going to explain how it works, but I'm also going to go into the history of it as well. I think you would find it very, very interesting. Okay, so let's begin with the actual chapters. So how do we make a world with Sudoku? That's really what this first chapter is all about. So we know what Sudoku is. I don't think I need to have everyone raise their hands over what Sudoku is. We all know what Sudoku is and the rules. It's a really difficult game. Well, sometimes. This particular Sudoku puzzle is quite easy, but you can make it really, really complex. But the rules are very, very simple. So as you know, each box needs 1 through 9. Each row and column needs 1 through 9. And yes, if we have an empty space, how do we know what should be there, right? In this empty space, we cannot have duplicates of other numbers. We can't have another 9. We can't have another 8. We can't have, in this case, a 4 because it's in the row and column. It has to be evenly spaced out. It can't conflict with one another. It has to be sort of perfectly balanced across the whole Sudoku board. So a classic strategy that some of you might be using if you're solving a Sudoku is not necessarily, but by looking what can be in a specific tile, but thinking of what can't be in that tile. So in this instance, let's note every number except for those it can't be. So we can see we have a 6, a 5, 4, 7, 8, and a 9. Those can't be there. So let's put every other number in that square. And then we have a 1 and a 2. So it could either be a 1 or a 2, but we're unsure. And I don't like those odds, and neither would an algorithm, really. So let's do this same principle for every other box. And this is usually whenever I have Sudoku on my phone, I play it sometimes on the train or whatever, and I would fill out each box with numbers like this. And sometimes it's very difficult; it doesn't work. But this is usually the way that you could do it. So let's look at these actual numbers. We have some boxes have many possibilities. This one is crazy, for example. There's 6 different possibilities. It could be a 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, or a 9. We basically have no idea what this is. And when a box has many different possibilities of what it could be, let's call that a superposition. So if you're familiar with superpositions, in I believe it's like quantum mechanics or something, they talk about particles and superpositions. We won't go that far, of course, but that's usually what a superposition means. It's something that can be multiple things at the same time, but we're unsure. And this superposition over here, it only has one number. It's a 4. So when we talk about superpositions and how random a superposition is, we talk about entropy, which is also from physics. And we can see that this box here has very high entropy. It's very random. And we have this box here, it's very not random. It's very low entropy, right? So let's start to solve this Sudoku, right? So I will place a 4 in this box, and you will maybe see what happens to the other boxes that are around. So, I mean, I don't know how the animation is on Zoom, but this 4 down here in the corner and these 4s up to the right, they disappear. And when they disappear, we are lowering the entropy of other tiles. So the 4s disappeared from the rows and the columns and its own box. So it's like a wave that goes out to all of the other superpositions and lowers their entropy. In this case, lowering one of them from 4,7 to 7. And let's do this thing again. Let's collapse this. Let's pick whatever has the lowest entropy and fill them out. I filled in the 3, and now we have 2 other numbers with very low entropy. It's slowly but steadily collapsing into lower and lower entropy. And we continue to do this. And you can see it lowers and lowers until we have a solved Sudoku. So entropy lowers as the waves go over each superposition. Eventually it collapses, giving us a solved Sudoku. Right? And also disclaimer that some Sudoku puzzles are made in a very clever way where this is kind of hard to do. And you might have noticed that yourself if you're familiar with this algorithm since before. But the idea stands the same. It's a pretty easy way to collapse superpositions. So anyway, what am I talking about? What does Sudoku have with games, and why am I going over each step of Sudoku? What does that have to do with making a world, as I said in the beginning of the chapter? Why is that? Why is that relevant? And the thing is, let's imagine Minecraft instead of Sudoku, right? So in Minecraft, it's a procedurally generated world with a bunch of different blocks that make up the world. And so grass is on the surface, dirt is underneath the grass, and then underneath the dirt, there's stone, right? So where am I going with this? Well, we can make it like the Sudoku we just did, but with the rules being completely different at this point. Instead of having numbers and having the rows and columns and all of those things, we can make our own rules. So in this case, we apply our own Sudoku rules to this method. And applying those allows us to do the entropy and have the waves collapse over the whole terrain until we have an entire world, right? So here are the rules for dirt, grass, and stone. Below the grass can be dirt, left and right can be dirt or grass, above can't be anything. The dirt can be surrounded by dirt or have stone underneath. And then the same goes for stone. Stone can be surrounded by stone or have dirt above it, kind of thing. Right, so let's collapse this. We have, I mean, if we look at this grid, this Sudoku grid we have grass blocks and dirt blocks and whatnot. And below the grass, there's only one possibility. There can only be dirt. Following these rules, there's only one possible way that this can generate. It can only be one thing. It can only be dirt. So let's collapse this. Let's pick this one with the lowest entropy and pick that one. And that's super awesome because now we're generating a terrain. But this is also very awkward that now we have some tiles that are have the same amount of entropy. The lowest entropy is similar over every tile in this case, which is pretty bad. We can't single out any square with a low entropy. So what do? So we can either add more rules that would single out, we can add more blocks so we can get a lower entropy, or we can use a reference like this. This is how I like to solve this issue. There's many other ways, but this is the simplest, so let's go with that. We have this image and we can see that there's sort of a distribution of blocks. Most of it's stone. Then there's dirt and then there's grass. So 10% is dirt, 20% is, no, 10% is grass, 20% dirt, 80% stone. Right? And then we can solve this in whatever way we wish. We could pick the one with the highest percentage chance, or as I like to do, which is to, yeah, we could pick the most common one, but to spice it up, you could just pick randomly between them. So you could have an 80% chance of one block versus another. So with those extra rules and that extra implementation into this method, we then generate an entire terrain of Minecraft, which is pretty cool. And this method is called wave function collapse. And I'm sure that some of you have heard about this method before. And also to clarify to anyone who might be wondering, this is not how Minecraft does it, because this is a very, very expensive way to generate terrain. I definitely don't recommend doing this in a voxel game. You could do it in other contexts, but for a voxel game, this is incredibly expensive. It's very powerful. You get very predictable and deterministically accurate results, but very expensive. for the computer. Maybe once we have quantum computers, we will be able to do it super fast. And also, if anyone is curious to optimize this as well, a nice little hack is, instead of looking at each individual cube and then figuring out entropy, we could just divide it into chunks. So we could create our own chunks and then have them pair up as a Sudoku kind of thing. And that's usually how some games have done it, to make sure that the computer doesn't break, kind of thing. So yes, I'm sure that there are other games. Please write in chat if you have if you know any other game that uses wave function collapse. But these are the games that I could think of that are sort of have it as a unique selling point and do it the most. I think TinyGlade uses this algorithm. That's interesting. TinyGlade is a really cool game as well. I should have had that as well, but I'm unsure if it's using the algorithm. Anyway, these games really sort of spearhead this algorithm. It's where they were first used. Definitely Bad North was the first commercial product where it got recognized. And so that's the first commercial game. But this is the first real implementation in a game engine of wave function collapse. We can see this building being built. Looks really cool. We can see this planet being built, which is very cool. And I will talk more about who made this example in a bit. But overall, apart from Bad North and TinyGlade and Townscaper, it's not really been used that much in game dev, especially not for generating terrain and stuff like that, since it's very expensive. It's very, very powerful for things like details on buildings. Many of the examples in like when they figured this out early was things like circuit boards and flower patterns and skylines and stuff like that. It's not very useful for terrain, but more detailing something. You could have a cube and then detail it with windows and pipes and whatnot. So it's really good for that. You can set up your own rules, have your own reference image and everything, and rapidly create assets and buildings and whatnot. And clever algorithms like this, I will go through a couple more algorithms in this webinar, not as much in detail as wave function collapse. But clever algorithms like this exist all over the place, used for many different situations. This algorithm is originally based on physics and quantum mechanics, and someone was like, hey, I'm gonna make a game with that, which is crazy. So these algorithms are hidden everywhere. And to take something like this and then implement it into games, it requires some thinking outside of the box. And I feel like we really need that kind of thinking outside of the box in games now, because yeah, we definitely need clever algorithms like this. And I mean, imagine how cool this would be. I mean, you could have cities and interior for different AAA titles where you go inside of a building and you know, the interior. And I'm thinking for the skyscrapers and stuff, this is super useful for big games like that to get unique looks and whatnot. And I believe some 3D modeling software does have wave function collapse as plugins, but it's sort of not as established and not as optimized as it could be. So that was wave function collapse and how it works and why it's cool. We can all agree, I think it's cool to see how it generates stuff. It's really nice when we input something and we get an output of something cool. But where does this actually come from? Which is arguably to me just as interesting. So I want to talk about the origin of this wave function collapse. And it starts sort of with me. No, it doesn't really, not wave function collapse, but I have myself as a reference point. It helps. So I studied at the Game Assembly, which is one of the largest game dev schools in Sweden. In Sweden, the games industry is like 10% TGA and 10% Futuregames sort of thing. So we make up a huge part of the games industry in Sweden. Again, very similar to Futuregames. And I was not the only one who was studying there. There was this other guy as well called Oskar Stålberg, who studied at the Game Assembly. And the thing is, when I was, I think maybe 15 or 16 years old, I saw his portfolio. I saw he had a game conference talk about this algorithm and how awesome it was. And I just fell in love with how cool the algorithm really was. And he had on his portfolio where you could go into the website and actually like play with the algorithm. You could like place this planet out and modify it yourself. Super awesome. I was really starstruck to see him once I finally got into the games industry. But yes, super big inspiration for me. And he also studied TGA. And while he really promoted and created wave function collapse adapted for games, he did not, of course, invent wave function collapse. It's from physics, as I talked about before, but he really took this algorithm and specialized in it and took it to its he took the algorithm to its very edge kind of thing when it comes to games. Is the website still running? Can we test it? I believe you can if you look up Oskar Stålberg on Google. But yes, he took this algorithm and pushed it as far as he could in Unity in this case. And I mean, for Bad North, it's not really necessary to use it. Wave function collapse isn't really super necessary to use. You could have just designed these islands that he made. And I mean, if some game designers are here, you could probably design better islands adapted for game, moments and whatever. But it was just so cool to see it being used in this context, and it really blew up his game. And he kept on spearheading and adding to wave function collapse. He added, instead of squares, it could be these different shapes, these almost circle-like shapes. He just continued to develop on the algorithm and made it better and better and better. And he's made both Bad North and Townscaper, both really cool and very well-crafted games. They're very solid games, even though they're kind of indie. They're still very well crafted, and he's just living off of these games, living the indie dream from this one algorithm. And perhaps the coolest thing about him, I worked with many people that went to the same class as Oscar, and I've met him as well. And when he was studying at the Game Assembly, he wasn't a programmer. He was actually an artist, and he learned programming as sort of a hobby thing. I mean, we have some hobby enthusiasts here as well. He just had it as a hobby while he was going through the game art education. And then during game projects, which is a thing we have at Futuregames and the Game Assembly, during the game projects, he would also do the programming in his projects. So he was really the star child kind of thing, doing everything. that's really cool. I think that he was actually an artist and eventually became a technical artist at Massive as well. So yes, that's enough of me fanboying over Oscar Ståhlberg. I really like him. So in this next chapter, specialize, specialize, specialize. We're sort of fading away a little bit from the algorithms at this point and talking more about specialization, because that's really what Oscar did and does already. Oscar Ståhlberg, he still he's basically completely specializing and becoming an expert in this one thing, and that's really good. And it was very attractive for employers as well when he was applying for different jobs. You know, his portfolio was so interactable. He showed both promise in graphics and programming, but also that he's super passionate about that one thing and can become an expert in that one thing. So to specialize in your subject, not just be a really good programmer, but be a really good programmer in a specialized area, is super attractive for employers, and is a proven strategy that has worked, definitely with my students and students that came before to specialize. It's hard, but you can make a career out of just one algorithm. But of course, there's many other areas you could also specialize in. It doesn't just have to be procedural generation. It could be a parkour system. It could be a weapons system. It could be procedural generation maybe, but in another context. Someone mentioned Perlin noise. Perlin noise is also kind of classic. That's a very cheap way to do procedural generation. And this goes for every discipline as well. I mean, as an artist, you specialize in many different areas as well, right? So as a programmer to specialize, there's so many things you could specialize in. Not just these generative things, but also gameplay and engine and whatnot. But I think algorithms as a programmer is a good way to start, to find an algorithm that is cool, that you like, that you get the hang of, that you understand, and then further develop on that to specialize. And this is more sort of advice to maybe beginners kind of thing. There might be an algorithm that is, and the algorithms are specialized in of themselves. They give you a desired output, and so developing on it is really good practice to specialize. And today we've looked at one algorithm only. We've only looked at wave function collapse, but I thought I would briefly just mention some more. Some more algorithms. I won't go into detail and exactly how they work, but just to mention them and their purpose. I thought we could go through a couple. I don't know how the frame rate is on this slide, but I made this little prototype specifically for this webinar. I've been making it for a week. About video is all good. So it's this super simple Vampire Survivors game. Vampire Survivors is actually the first game you make when you come to Futuregames. I teach you how to make Vampire Survivors. And for this Vampire Survivors, you're just a little guy shooting vegetables. You're like a farmer or something like that. But yes, and this game so far, just in its prototype stage, uses many different algorithms and methods that could each be a specialized area, right? So let's look at the first one. For example, we have Fibonacci sequence, or the golden ratio, or in this case, I'm using golden angle to calculate the spawn points of the different enemies to evenly spread out where they spawn. So you can see these red circles here on the map, that's where the carrots sort of pop out from the ground and then run towards the player. We then have force-directed graph together with a couple of other methods. It's actually kind of physics-based as well, where these nodes attract and push each other away. And this is to procedurally generate a skill tree that makes sense, because going in and designing 100 upgrade nodes, it's something that I did not want to do. So an algorithm is doing it for me. And also, speaking of this specific one, we have descriptions for each upgrade, and those are also generated with an algorithm. So I only have to create the upgrade, and the algorithms figure everything else out. So that's force-directed graph for the skill tree. We then have A star, which you might be familiar as well. How many people have heard of A star? A lot of hands, really fast. Exactly. A star is super, super famous, super, super popular. It's a very effective, quick algorithm to pathfind. It's what Google Maps uses. I think Google Maps uses a super, super effective A star. And then maybe not as much of an algorithm, but algorithmically I add some behavior to it. I do procedural texture mapping with rotation and blending, I mean. So you can see on the left here, we have this map. And then to the right, it's carnage. It's after a big combat has been done. And usually the way you would do blood and stuff like that on the ground in games is like with decals or stuff like that. But when you have thousands of enemies, you want to make it more optimized. So this is a way for me to add millions and millions of puddles of carrot blood without any optimization issue. And you could specialize in either one of these areas and make it as advanced as you wish. And that could be your specialization. That could be the thing that makes the game unique and feel good and all of that. We could combine these algorithms as well. We could use the Fibonacci sequence to generate the nodes and then use pathfinding for an AI with a skill tree to pathfind in the skill tree kind of thing. We can combine and we can use these algorithms all together. And as a teacher at Futuregames, because I'm not a developer really anymore, well, I do develop and I do program quite a lot. But as a teacher at Futuregames, what I strive to do, I guess what my specialization is that I strive to find what my students like to do. If they have a knack for a certain specialization or potential specialization or a specific method or an AI that they think is cool, and then I help them to become even more specialized in that field, to make a really good specialized portfolio that's then ready for the industry when they apply for jobs eventually. And I have students that have internship all over at Playdead and at Avalanche. And yes, we've crafted some really good portfolios this year round. And to show what I mean, I actually have an example of a student that I would like to show that has specialized. And he is a good example of specialization. People from the industry has looked through his portfolio and given, good remarks. And this is acknowledged by the industry to be a good portfolio, not just in general, but also because he specialized in his field. So he specialized in something completely different than wave function collapse. Here is his portfolio. You can see he has some info, some core skills, GitHub link if a tech lead wants to scrutinize his code and look at his commits and stuff like that, and see how often he works or whatnot. But also the big part of this is the specialization part of his portfolio, which in this case is a parkour system in Unreal. And I mean, we can see on his portfolio as well, mentioned several times, that it's 3Cs. So camera, character, and controls. That's really what he specializes in. That's what he thinks is fun. That's what he thinks is what he is good at doing. And yes, 3Cs is also kind of pretty common at AAA studios. There's even entire teams dedicated to character, camera, and controls. So it's a good specialization to have. And just because you've narrowed down your specialization to one thing, in this case, parkour, or it could be the wave function collapse, right? Even though you've narrowed down and you've specialized in that one thing, that doesn't mean that that thing isn't, advanced. I mean, this whole parkour system has so many moving parts that has to work together in a gameplay system. There's not one game mechanic called parkour. There's the climbing, there's the moving on the ground, there's hook shots, energy, jumping, camera movement, situational camera, everything like that. It's so much to just make this parkour system work. Even though you've just specialized on that niche thing, it's still has a lot of depth that is more than enough to show employers that you are experienced as a programmer. And someone said 3C are essential for programming, gameplay programming, and that is very accurate. 3Cs are incredibly important for gameplay programming. To give like an example, when they did Grand Theft Auto 5, I think they spent 5 years on CCC to make sure that the character is really adapted to every situation possible, whether it's being hit by a car or falling down a hill or climbing or fighting or shooting out of a window or the other window, super, super essential 3Cs. And you can see here, I mean, he goes really in depth with every method that he is using. He's using a lot of physics. He's using a lot of linear algebra to figure things out. He's using a lot of cameras. And I mean, there's animations to it as well, of course. There's design patterns like state machine and whatnot. There's so much that goes into it. And Albin has become a specialist in this parkour system, which is very, very useful to have. And it takes a lot of work to get to that point where you've specialized. I mean, this specialization project took months to craft and make and do nice. But to give you some hope and to show that it's possible, Albin didn't start from scratch, and none of us do as developers, right? So he can take inspiration from so many other parkour systems that exists and take those things and develop upon them to make his portfolio. And Oscar Stolberg did the exact same thing. He did not create wave function collapse from the beginning. He simply took it and put it into game development. It was actually made by this guy in 3D, Paul Merrill, who first sort of made it into 3D graphics. So Oscar is taking that and then, okay, how do I adapt this for games, right? And we do this all of the time because this guy then took it from this guy, Werner Heisenberg, who figured out the physics in quantum mechanics to how wave function collapse works. So many of the methods in which we program has been already done before us, basically. We take inspiration of what came before and then we improve upon it. And that's, we keep further developing our game engines, we make sequels to games and all of that, right? And I want to mention some other specialists that you might have heard of as well. We have Sebastian Log, super specialized in shaders, can really make the graphics card do whatever he wants to do. Super specialized in shaders and can make simulations and whatnot. We have Dennis Gustafsson, who is located here in Malmö. He made the physics for Frostbite back in the day for Battlefield, and is making, he's just focusing on systems. He's really, really specialized in that area. I mean, he makes his own engine and it's ray traced with smoke and fire systems everything like that, and ray tracing and whatnot. Edskild Dijkstra, super old guy. He makes what A-Star is based upon. A-Star was made on top of his algorithm to make it more optimized for computers. But he made that. Alan Turing made an algorithm for a computer, one of the first ones that was completely automatic to solve Enigma. We have Ada Lovelace, who created the first programming language ever. She predicted like 250 years ago that algorithms would be able to generate images and video and stuff like that. She made the first programming language and syntax, and the first algorithm she made was for solving Bernoulli numbers, and then she died. So we didn't really see what else she did, but she was super awesome. First published game, not game program, but program. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz created the binary system and a lot of theory. First computer scientist figured out that, hey, maybe a machine could use zeros and ones to solve things, but then he died. Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, who created algebra, and he made the first algorithm ever. So remember the algorithm from the beginning of the webinar with the flowers? He created similar algorithms for people to do, to calculate things like taxes and land value and whatever. And his name, Al-Khwarizmi, was later Latinized in history and became Algoritmi. So algorithm comes from this fella who created the first one and really wrote everything down. So much is based upon what this guy did in his book. He made a book called like Computations and Calculations, something for taxes, which had a bunch of cool algorithms in it. So to my final chapter, and I'm wrapping this up. I know I've gone on for a bit long. I'm sorry, Piotr. But my final chapter is I want you to realize that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. All of these people did amazing things for us today and has built the foundation upon which we stand on. And we have our game engines as well that have been developed for such a long time. Game programming is very difficult, but it's often also disregarded because it's so intimidating to get started. But you shouldn't be intimidated. Oh. You shouldn't be intimidated by it because there's so much foundation laid out since before by many, many developers. And something that none of these developers did, except for maybe Mohammed, was to reinvent the wheel. And you shouldn't feel like you have to do that as well. If you're an aspiring programmer, please don't look at it from the perspective that you need to understand everything all at once, right? Many of the methods are literally thousands of years old, and it takes time to catch up. And think of it more as you're taking the methods that they used and then further develop upon it. So downloading Unity right now, it takes a few seconds and you can make a scene like this happen. And behind this is so much physics, so many algorithms, so much rendering and all of that. It's done for you. So you can go into Unity and you can already start to specialize as a hobby enthusiast, or by starting at Futuregames or the Game Assembly. You have so much behind you to support you in this. And we live in a modern world with internet and YouTube. There are thousands of hours of material to learn from, and you might not find what you specialize in just by looking at this, but eventually you might find that one thing that's like, oh my God, I could do so much with this algorithm. So looking up tutorials, staying curious, playing games, researching about it, it's all part of the process until you find what you want to specialize in. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can find your own specialization, and to back you up are all of these amazing people. So yes, that's basically the webinar. And to maybe inspire some of you, we also have this portfolio site where you can see my students' portfolios and their specialization projects and whatnot. So yes, please, you can check those out. I will find a link for it and post it in the chat.
I'm sharing it right now for your convenience.
Thank you so much, Piotr.
Thank you, Martin. It was really eye-opening, especially for me, because it's totally new territory. I would say it was the most challenging webinar where I was introduced, so far. And we have a lot of them, guys. If you are interested in reaching out to recordings from our archives, we have webinars on game art, game design. You will find all of them on our channels. I will share links as well. But right now we have Jan, who will join us. And Martin, I will leave Jan in your hands. You have some questions prepared, as I know. Jan is working at CD Projekt, right? Our strategic partner here. I'm pretty sure the audience would like to hear, like, firsthand how these algorithms are applied in daily work at AAA Studio, or in Jan's experience from the previous jobs. So I'm leaving you guys, and I'm here moderating the audience. And guys, the audience, we will have 30 minutes Q&A with you, so prepare your questions, please. At the end, we will have time, especially for you. Thank you.
Awesome. So hello, John.
Hi, and hi to everybody else who's here. Maybe just a small introduction from my part, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
No? Okay. Okay, good. Just to verify, so I'm not speaking to myself. That would be great. Great. So about myself, just very briefly, as you might have seen, I'm currently working as the acting engineering manager for gameplay at CD Projekt Red. It's a mouthful, I know. But basically what it means, I am something between, I do gameplay programming, obviously for our games, and plus I also take care of people and try to manage the teams, just making sure we deliver the things we're supposed to, and also help people with their personal development, feedbacking their work, and all of those things. It's fairly comprehensive topic, I would say, but maybe we're gonna get to that a little bit later. And just from my tiny bit of a history, in the past, I went through a couple of companies already, but maybe the most important thing are the video games I worked on for you. So I started working on DayZ, if that rings any bells, kind of a zombie survival multiplayer games. Then I moved towards Techland, where I worked on Dying Light 2, but mainly as well this unannounced fantasy open world RPG, which is actually a project I spent the most of my career on so far. And yeah, now I'm working at CD Projekt on Witcher 4. So yeah, that's it for the introduction.
Awesome. So yes, I have some questions prepared. Your role, I'm not as familiar with your role, so I'm sure that I'll find out more about it. I'm well aware of gameplay and what gameplay means, of course. But yes, so maybe to begin, we learn by our challenges. So as a gameplay engineer, like what is the biggest technical challenge that you guys have?
So if I look at my professional experience in this role, and I've been doing it for a while now, I think around 3 years. I've been in this leadership / management. So yeah, for sure, the biggest challenge for me was actually balancing the time you spend on this managerial things with actually delivering things for the game, right? The features, the coding. And the problem with doing this sort of more people-focused responsibilities is that by nature it's very unpredictable because you're constantly trying to improve the processes, help people in your team, and it eats up a lot of your time, right? And just really finding that balance between I have planned I'm going to deliver this feature in this sprint, but at the same time I need to help us to support the rest of the team. I need to help them plan the work. I don't know, maybe there's something about personal development that comes up unexpectedly that I need to support them with, and that gets only more difficult as the team grows, right? So the more people you have in your team, the less time you have to actually deliver things. So what I found is just really getting used to delegating work and just more being in this organization role really helps. But it's always about just being on the edge, and kind of reacting to things and prioritizing well. And I think for leadership roles as well, it's really important to not lose touch with what you're making, because I could probably just do management stuff all the time, but then I would lose touch with what the rest of the team is actually working on, and then I can't give them good feedback, right? If I don't know what is it that they're working on. So it's definitely, for me, it was important to find this balance so I can keep in touch with the product and the games, but also be able to support them anytime it's needed.
Because that's sort of what my next question would be in that case, because there's of course all of these technical constraints and time management and whatnot. And from what I understand, also when a team gets bigger, it gets less efficient if you don't manage it. So how do you then balance these technical constraints with the creative vision that the game designers have?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I can't speak for CD Projekt specifically, but in my personal experience, more broadly, I would say with the technical constraints, it's really important always to do this very clear prototype, especially if you're working on AAA, right? Because just investment into the technology and just get the wheels moving in big companies, it just takes a while, and it's a really big effort from all different departments. So having clear direction at the beginning and prototype, fail fast, and then iterate on it, it's extremely important for me. Usually you kind of select a couple of key areas in which you want to innovate when it comes to technology and gameplay, and you're kind of focusing on that, because really, especially with these big projects, you can't innovate on everything, otherwise the game would take 10 years to make. So it's really important to have this direction for gameplay, but also for the technology, right? It's really good to know where you're heading, and then once you have that prototype, you can actually you have proven this is something you want and you want to create this, and then we can head into the production, right? And actually bring in more engineers and more artists and actually make it properly implemented in code. Maybe it was done in blueprints before, so we re-implement it, we make it more general, we make it support all the edge cases that are needed, and just continue with that. Also, what comes to mind is there is that generally, as gameplay programmers or general engineers, we tend to overgeneralize systems very often, and it's kind of this. I sometimes have it too. I feel I want to implement something really nicely, and so it's general and can handle like all the situations that we put into it, and the gameplay works in a systemic way, right? So it creates like all of these nice opportunities in the world just by naturally playing it, and some unexpected things as well. But the problem often is that we do it without actually considering what the game needs. And I've seen like so many times, we create some huge system, we spend like several months on it, and then we actually use it just for this like one scripted sequence, and we didn't really need the whole thing. So it's really important to also think about like, okay, is the investment into the effort on this feature actually worth it? That's something good to answer before you actually start implementing it.
That's a very good point, because you could spend, I mean, the classic example is kind of like, do you spend 4 hours doing it or 8 hours automating it? 8 hours is more time, and it's very crucial for AAA, right? To not waste time and money all of the time, right? And when you're making generic systems like that, it's obviously really cool and really nice to have, but also if it's only used in that one case. So sort of how do you manage that in that case? Like what is the sort of way to go about it to make sure that you don't waste a bunch of time?
Yeah, so I guess similar like what I said like at the beginning, just like do really dirty and fast prototypes. I feel like that's also one skill that's really important for just gameplay engineers and maybe engineers in general, is to be able to prototype really fast, like taking shortcuts. It doesn't have to be pretty code. Just like use whatever is already there, mash it together, and create the experience you want. And then, obviously, when it confirms and this is something you want to do, you can always like improve it later. But it's really good not to waste time. So yeah, focusing on the prototypes, and only then moving towards the like proper implementation. That always was super useful for me, and it is actually something that in my teams I always try to kind of cultivate this culture of learning how to prototype fast. So I would highly recommend actually, just trying that. And I think maybe like game jams are a really good way to cultivate this skill, because we have limited time, and we actually like in some other teams that I worked in, like we ended up doing something like this, like small game jams, just so people can like bring their ideas, try them very fast, and then maybe if it's something cool, we actually use it in the game. And it has proven to be like very very useful way how to, for one, teach people how to do this fast prototyping, but also get something interesting that maybe you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, because they wouldn't have a place to kind of express their creativity.
Right. So yeah. And I'm thinking also, since you are sort of part of this leadership role, did you begin out like as a leadership role, or was it a gameplay programmer in the beginning, or?
Oh, so I can go into like sort of my general road into game dev, but yeah, basically like I started as a networking programmer first of all, which was quite interesting because I didn't study video games. I wish there was something like Futuregames at the time when I was studying. I would definitely sign up for that, but yeah, back then, at least in Czech Republic, where I'm from, we didn't have any video game schools or anything like that, or any courses. So I just studied on normal like IT school, and then with focus on networking and networking security and telecommunications and things like that. Which and then after I finished, I was like, yeah, this is not the thing I want to do. And so I actually saw this advert for a position in a company, and it was for a networking programmer. I was like, okay, I can join the things I like with something that I know about already, because I could program networking applications, right? And multiplayer video game is basically just the same thing, another type of that. So I actually applied for it, and this is actually really ties into what you were saying, Martin, with the specialization, because the fact, okay, I didn't know, basically nothing about how to make a video game at that time, but I had this specialization that I could apply to video games, and that really helped me to get this first job. And that's how I got into video games. So I worked on, the networking layer for a long time. It was very low level, so just like networking sending packets, encryption, things like that. And after a while, I actually started slowly shifting towards gameplay, and it was something that I had more fun with, and I was pretty good at it. So I stayed with that, and then slowly continued throughout the different companies. And eventually, I kind of started picking up more responsibility, and just because I had this, let's say, also another skill, which is I will say I think I'm pretty good at just like soft skills, and talking with people. And for programmer, that is like again very valuable thing to have, and it's another skill, if you will. And if you have that skill, that kind of supports again like the specialization in people management. So I think for me it was kind of like a natural next step to take that. And that's kind of how it came to be, I suppose.
For sure. And I again with what because Piotr talked about soft skills and hard skills like in the very beginning as well. And I feel like it is sort of like 30% hard skills and 70% soft skills to at least sort of network and get into the industry and all of that. You can sort of present yourself and in that way.
Finally,
it's
something I have
important.
a bit of expertise in, and I can add my 5 cents, guys. And for the audience, this is what I'm hearing from all the recruiters from all the companies. We need the right people, and we are looking into soft skills because we cannot risk having the ego-driven person who will just disrupt our pipeline, and they are very, very, very specific about this. And so this is the I would say 70% it's the minimum. Yeah. The rest is learnable.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like, even I do a lot of interviews with people, done a couple of them. And it's like definitely the skills, the hard skills for being a good programmer, that's important. And, you will not get anywhere without having them. But there is a lot of people who are good programmers, right? What makes you a great programmer is being able to use those skills in a team environment on a AAA project, with 500 people. Because there we don't want you to work like in a locked in a room for a week, and then at the end of it, you will sort of come up with something, but that something might not be actually what the people around you need. So the important thing is to always like have these communication skills, listen to the feedback, being proactive in gathering the feedback, communicate with other disciplines, and all of that really makes the process much more effective, which is why we are generally like looking at it with such an attention, let's say. And it is what will set you apart, especially I think in engineering, because a lot of the times like there is obviously this stereotype with engineers like not being very good at communication. And unfortunately it is kind of true at times. So always like if there is somebody who has this skill as well, it will just give you that extra edge. So it's definitely something worth thinking about and trying to get better at as well.
For sure. We're all in unison here, I think. Speaking of gameplay and AAA and all of that, is there any trends you see in sort of AAA in terms of gameplay that's sort of shaping how AAA will look in the future?
So that's interesting. I mean, we could probably talk about like generative AI, but I think what's more interesting for me is, and I've been thinking about this lately, basically like, the role of a gameplay engineer in the future and how is it going to look like? Because right now, if you look at Unreal, like we have all of these super friendly visual tools, blueprinting, you can basically make a game just in blueprints, right? It might not be super efficient, but you can make it, especially if it's not like AAA. It might be even like efficient enough for that purpose. And what kind of suggests that to me is at some point, this role of like game or gameplay engineer, whatever you want to call it, will potentially shift somewhere else. Because at some point, like I think we will still always need some engineers who are more engine oriented, those who solve like all of these mathematical problems, and they make all the tools depending on which engine you're using, of course. But then, the people who actually make the gameplay and the gameplay systems, more or less, I can imagine, we would be able to implement a lot of that in the more visual way and just scripting. And at that point, maybe, that role between the engine programmer and the designer is kind of like redundant already. And it's more like, okay, we have a kind of like a technical designer and an engine programmer. And then the technical designer is a person who just like, they obviously design, but they also implement the gameplay directly, just because it's the barrier is so low that you don't actually need a specialized person in between those two roles. And you have to have that like crazy coding knowledge as well. And it's starting to pop up, I think, like more and more. So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting to me, like to see like how will it evolve and if we will still have a need for this role in between. Wonder, what do you think about it, Martin?
I mean, in terms of trends in gameplay and how we work, I mean, it's as you say, we have so many visual tools now, and there's so much foundation. So I mean, roles are definitely going to change. Depend like in terms, the Unreal is going absolute bonkers with all of their different tools and Blueprint and all of that. And new tools are being developed, and new roles will pop up. And I feel like maybe we're closing in on a bit of a transition soon, where when it comes to gameplay and engine, there might be a bigger divide, But yes, at the moment, I'm not sure exactly what will happen, but
it's exciting.
It's going to be easier to make games. That's for sure. It's going to be easier to make games.
Yeah. The entry barrier is already like extremely low, and it will only get lower, I feel like. So
definitely. To anyone aspiring to be in AAA, do you have any advice?
Aspiring. I think we touched it a little bit. Like, obviously, there is no way around the like hard skills. You kind of have to get that knowledge. So, which is where the studies are really important. Like, I learned how to program at college as well. And even while I would say I don't think like generally like I could have spent less time on the studies. Like that part was really important for me. Like just learning the skills, and then just that specialization came actually later in practice. But it's also like about showing those skills in a proper way, like you were showing these portfolios, right? So it's kind of important to really catch the attention of the people who are interviewing you. So having those prototypes of small games, even if it's just like small specific features that show what you can do, it really does give you an edge in the process, because we can see that you are able to take something from the beginning to the end, right? And as well, like specifically for gameplay programmers, it's for me, like I think I keep saying this everywhere I go, but it's really important to also be a game designer. Like I cannot imagine having a programmer who just doesn't like to actually also design the games, because you're so close to the actual experience that you need to have the sense of like what makes the game fun, and you will always be like filling the gaps between the designs and just making a lot of decision on the go as well. So yeah, there is definitely like some part of the programming gameplay engineer, I would say, I don't know, it's like maybe 40% where you really need to like utilize these like design skills as well. And like we're saying, maybe it's only going to get more and more going forward. Yeah, and then obviously there is this whole thing about the soft skills, which are really important, especially in AAA, because the teams are just really big. So it's important to have the skills and fit into the culture of the team. So the things like being able to give constructive feedback, receive it, and adjust your process, being able to openly communicate with people, unifying people on a specific tasks, working on some like strike team You can like lead the efforts, cross-discipline, mediate the discussions, solve problems. And those are like really valuable skills that we really look at. And it really will set you apart when you're applying for a job. And we do try to like generally build the teams with this in mind, right? And actually, on this topic, which reminds me, one small, let's say, tip. There was a talk at GDC this year from one of our technical directors and our HR representatives, Colin Walder and Marta Wozniak. And it was called Impact of Implementing Core Values in Our Teams. And I would highly recommend just watching that, because it goes to show like how important these things are. And you can hear it directly from the people who actually like worked on this at CD Projekt. So I can highly recommend that talk. I'm not sure if it's available yet publicly or at GDC World, so we might have to wait for that a little bit. But eventually, I hope it will get out.
Awesome. And then I feel like talking about all of this career and story of career, the age-old question. If you could go back to your younger self and you could give one piece of advice, one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. Huh. It always like brings me back to this like to the soft skills. But other than that, I would say just kind of not be too tough on yourself, I suppose. Like I don't know how is it for you guys, but every time I want to work on my personal project, it's really difficult to find the time, right? Because you already, I don't know, if you already have a job in video games or in something else, like just finding the time and energy for it, it can be really demanding, and you can try to be like perfectionist and really like make something huge. So I would say just like don't be too hard on yourself. Like we also all struggle with this, and I don't think anybody expects you to have like a full-fledged video game. It's just about showing the skill in that particular area that you specialize in, and showing that you can do it and you have experience with it, you have the knowledge. So yeah, I guess it would be something like that. Don't be too hard on yourself, and really like do the best you can do, and hopefully the rest will follow, I suppose. That's
Sure.
That's not very specific, but yeah.
That's all my questions.
Cool.
If I may just
Thank
relate
you.
to you bringing Colin Walder here, I can 100% confirm he has synthesized basically I would say, as I perceive it, the HR approach and knowledge from CDPR. He's quite often a guest in Futuregames, so he's sharing this with us. So we have our own private JDC here, which I'm very happy about, and there are golden 5 rules of the filter which every candidate to CD Projekt has to go through. So I highly also suggest finding this lecture. Yes, Martin, I think we are going towards the Q&A session with our audience. So guys, right now I will ask you to raise your hands, whoever wants to ask a question, and we will one by one give you the stage, Mike. I see Julerm, it's the first one, so I will ask you to unmute and address either Martin or Jan with your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, so hello, I'm a game programmer, and I guess my question is, since CD Projekt Red works on big RPG games, there's a lot of gameplay systems that end up being implemented and having to interact with each other. And so my question is, in a big AAA studio, like, how do you coordinate programmers who are working on different systems that will have to interact with each other? How do they coordinate their work in a way that everything ends up working well with each other? So is it mostly communication? Are these systems thoroughly planned beforehand, before implementation? Like, how do you get a big RPG game with so many systems just flawlessly working together? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and definitely something I feel like, generally like companies will always struggle with, and it's just coordinating is like huge effort is really demanding. I would say like in general, with any game, it's this coordination of the effort of the teams is really crucial, and that's where like having the strong technical direction comes in handy. So like having that like technical director, who's like really sort of aware of the bigger picture. I found that to be helpful in my career, like because there's just somebody who you can rely on that gets like all of this information, and they coordinate the efforts on all the sides. But as well, like they can only do so much, right? So you need to have some like really strong technical people in the team who can lead the respective areas and then coordinate the communication in between the departments. Yeah, I would say just like a lot of communication and planning things really way ahead of the time, and just so like okay, we're gonna deliver this open world system, and then we have these dependencies based on it. So we need to make sure that the people who depend on this kind of like incorporate it into their plan, so they're not like waiting for us for months, until we deliver some huge system. So yeah, it's a lot of like I guess shuffling around with production and a lot of communication. Yeah, again, like where the communication comes in handy, because delivering the system is one thing, but like making sure it's something. It is the thing that we need, and also it does come at the time when we need it is completely another thing, right? Because you want to avoid these like times of or bottlenecks, even when some team cannot progress because we haven't delivered something. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. And now it's, I believe, John with Silent H.
Nice.
Hi, we can hear you loud and clear, I think.
Now?
Now, yes.
Oh, yes.
I muted my microphone, sorry. Yeah, thank you for the webinar. And my first question would be, or like the base of the question is, Jan, do you happen to know the game playability system from Unreal?
I do. I can't say I've worked with it too much, because actually, like being now at CDP, that is my first of commercial experience with Unreal. Before that, I always worked with, let's say, privately owned engines. But I did some things in it, yeah.
Okay, then can you maybe, because right now I'm trying to learn it, the gas system, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed because you can do so much with replication and everything that's just like with the abilities and everything. What would you say should be like the first things that I should understand in the system to like work with it?
I'm not sure if I can tell you like exactly what to focus on, given just I haven't worked with it that extensively. But maybe if I take a look at it a bit more broadly, because it is very powerful system from what I can see. Like you can build like a lot of interesting gameplay features on it, and yeah, it is kind of like a different view on a video game, right? How you build it. My first question would be like, is it worth it for your project? Because it does give you some extra logic that you have to take care of. It is some, let's say, there is a cost to probably using it. Especially if it's like a small scale project. So just like really take a look and evaluate. What does it give you, and if you're not just using it for the sake of using it, but if it actually makes some part of your project easier to implement than if you use something else. Yes, sorry, I can't go into more details, but I'm still like Unreal is fairly kind of new to me.
Okay, let's say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now Cecil.
Hi, Cecil. I was just mostly wondering because I'm a big fan of RPGs. I was wondering in terms of managing like quest lines and quest systems. All right, this might be a really big topic already to approach. I was wondering, like, because it's I know CD Projekt Red mostly has been working with like open world concepts lately with like Witcher and Cyberpunk. I was wondering, like, what's the general system that you guys use in terms of developing, just like making sure that the world is at a current state for a specific quest or for a specific events to pop up?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I can get into that. It's
Oh, okay.
especially with the upcoming projects. It's all very kind of very secret. Let's say it
I
would be
understand.
like
Thank you.
all the way too specific. Sorry.
Yes, now it's critic.
Hi.
If I pronounce
Can
it
you hear
right.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have this question. You mentioned about prototyping, like prototyping it and later sending the game to artists and engineers, right? I think prototyping also involves logic, like implementing logic in the beginning stage itself. So let me say you implemented the logic and you send to the artist for beautifying the game. And what if at the last minute you come up with a new idea, like how do you come back to it? Because you already created the prototype, right? With the new logics and stuff.
So you mean you would come up with a new idea like later in the production, or still like in the prototyping phase?
No, after post prototyping phase.
After post prototyping, I mean, that will always happen. Like it's, you will never get everything done in like pre-production. There's always new ideas, like things that come up from the actual production process that will change for sure. So it's only natural, and you have to kind of count with that happening in the whole process. Then usually, it's also a question. Okay, if you already kind of implemented this feature or system, that you prototyped before, and you implemented it like in the full and proper way. Usually, if it's implemented, let's say, well, there is a certain amount of flexibility that it allows you. So, and if I can think of like in my head for a couple of examples that this happened to me. That we changed the approach for the system or the feature, but if the system is written well enough, you can usually adjust it only with like certain amount of effort, not like completely rewrite it, right? And generally like it happens like very frequently. I can even, unfortunately, at times it happens that you're just like changing one feature like 5 times, back and forth, just because we are kind of like the conditions in the game changes, the direction changes, and it is a big part of like gameplay engineering as well, just like sort of going back and forth between things. And sometimes you end up going in circles. It also happens. But for that, it's really good to have good systems that will allow you to kind of do those modifications cheaply and fast, right? So yeah, it's something to think about when you're implementing a system, and there is a bit of a trap, like I mentioned there. So you don't overgeneralize it, but if you can make it like flexible enough, so you can kind of like plug in pieces of logic, like encapsulate pieces of logic in a way that they can be like easily replaced. I think that's like a really good habit to get into.
Usually, how many days? Last question, yeah. Like how many days it would take to finish the prototype in general? So you mentioned it fast. Like how many days would it?
So I guess it will depends like on what it is specifically. Like I don't know if let's say I was prototyping some like player ability, right? What player can do in the past, and you already have like let's say kind of semi-functioning game, right? There is like some other abilities that are there for the player. What I would usually do is just like take something that exists and kind of just like mutate it into what I need it to be. And I don't know if it wasn't like something crazy complex, like you can do that in a day or two tops. Like by using like all the existing animations, you can just like really change this ability into something that you need. So yeah, but again, it really depends on the scope of what you're trying to do. Like I don't think I can say like universal number, but definitely if you have something that is kind of close and some pieces of logic that you can use, it's always like makes it faster.
Thanks, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And now it's Lucy.
Hi there. Thank you for the talk.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, you talked a lot about soft skills throughout. How would you suggest improving soft skills, and how would you demonstrate those in an interview setting or in a job application?
Ooh, that's a really good question. It is something that's really hard to actually improve, because usually like we are kind of it comes up from how you were raised, like generally your life, your like let's say mental state as well. Like it is something that it's kind of hard to control. So it's good to first of all like kind of see where your weaknesses are, asking other people for feedback. If you cooperate with them, that's like a first step I would do. Like really identify like what are your weak spots. So if you have if you're not like let's say in some cooperative environment yet, you can just ask your friends, right? And maybe you work on a game jam, so just like ask them, how the cooperation went. So once you identify that, yeah, it's like a question of what it is specifically. Like some things you can probably, with some focus, change yourself. You can, there's a whole bunch of like self-improvement books that are like really helpful. I personally I never finish any of them. I always start, and it's because it's kind of feels like I don't know, like work reading them, So it's really difficult to actually finish something like that. But there are some ideas that you can get from it which are really helpful. Networking is a really good way to improve your kind of like communication skills and generally like seeing how other people work. So like going to conferences, talking with people, seeing presentations about their workflow. I found that super helpful. Like even that's networking, meeting people that will also help you potentially finding a job, right? Because you will actually know people, and when something comes up, it's always good to have connections. What else?
Here I can help you.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it, but I can contribute in a meaningful way, answering this question of Lucy's. Because I was attending this Think, our recruitment event, and I'm working with recruiters on daily basis, trying to attract them and fix internships for our students. And what I heard after the interviews, that they were very impressed by our students referring to soft skills during the interview. So the very fact that they were saying, we were a good team, but we had our bumpy road. But then I had to withdraw with our idea and agree with my peers. So the very fact that they were referring to the soft skills and their teamwork experience during the interview already made them stand out as candidates, and it was very working really to their benefit. So they were not only covering, I know this program and that program, and I have this skills and that skills. No, they were reflecting in a real time during the interview on their experience with working with other people. So this is what I can suggest. And the other thing is, of course, what we do in Futuregames, and this is I don't know how to make it more visible, but this is exactly what we are focused on. So our students go through 4 game projects, and basically game project 1 and 2 are for the sole purpose on exposing you on all the kind of team frictions. You are suddenly working cross-site, for example, with designers from Warsaw, with artists and programmers from Boden and Malmo. So we mix people and expose them on all kind of challenges in communication, etc. So this is how I would say, and here Janek correct me, but attending game jams, working with people, doing projects, and exposing yourself, not sitting by your computer and doing your stuff. This is of course important, but also delivering projects, shipping projects, however flawed they may be, but gaining this experience of working with people.
Yeah, even like going through the actual interviews, right? Even if it doesn't work out, it's always this experience that you get, and it will help you to get better next time, right? So definitely, yeah. Even like if you feel like maybe this is something that you will probably not get as a position, it's still worth trying it always. And just like ideally, if you can get from the recruiter some feedback as well, always ask about it, because it's very helpful to actually hear what they thought about you. And I'm thinking about, I would love to give you some like specific things. And one of the books that I actually finished reading was, and I found that to be very helpful for, maybe it's more like catered towards like leaders, but it's a book called Radical Candor. And I found it to be like really, really helpful in this regard of like, how to talk with people in a way so it's like constructive, and you're not like getting them like into defensive immediately, and how to honestly give feedback and things like that. So I can recommend that one at the very least. I found it to be like really, really helpful, and I use it like very often in my work life.
Sorry, just to double check, what was the name of the book again?
Yeah, I will write it on the chat.
Thank you.
There it is.
May I also chip in on this question? It's a big topic. I know
Yeah.
we've talked a lot, but so like something that my teacher as well said. My teacher was actually employing some of my students as well. He has this. He works for Playdead, the people who make Inside, and he interviews them and he looks for certain things. And I also interview people for applying to the school, and I interviewed people when I was working in the industry as well. So I was interviewing students coming in. And a pretty common thing with some people, especially when they're kind of young as well and don't have the soft skills and haven't worked in a group and stuff, is you ask a teamwork question and it's like, okay, you were in this team and what were the challenges and how did you solve them, kind of thing. And then they answer about how much of a leader they are and how good their hard skills are and how talented they are and how they fix the issue and how the others didn't fix it and stuff like that. And that's not really the answer you want. Like what my teacher really was looking for when he was looking at my students is persistence in communicating and also to be able to compromise. To be able to compromise in a big group is incredibly important. And if you can't, it's like a deal breaker for some big studios, because if you can't compromise, if you're so stubborn with your own things, then you can't work in a group. So that's a really, really important soft skill to have, is to possess the ability to compromise. That you might know that you are right and you disagree with a person, but you're willing to find a way around it and compromise and sort of kill your darlings with to make it work,
Actually, Piotr took it from my head. I was gonna say this quote from Colin as well. Like he always says it, like keep your ego in check. He always says it, and it's really important because, like, you can be like a really good programmer, but if you are stubborn and you will not budge and you will kind of like insist on doing things your way, like you will not get very far. It's really about that like openness to communication and finding the common ground, which really makes the difference. Thank you for that, Peter.
Amen.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lucy. Simon, now it's your turn.
Hi, sorry, I don't have a camera, so you'll have to do with my voice. I hope it's not too annoying.
No, that's fine.
Don't worry.
So my question is not for any one of you specifically. I think all of you meet the requirements to reply. You mentioned game jams before, and because I participate in many, usually like 2 weeks game jams, I've already asked this question to local game dev groups, but I'd like to know some international, like the idea of international idea is how much is your participation to game jams considered when you're looking for recruit, like maybe a portfolio, what they did in that game jam, especially because many times you're not alone when participating to game jams, but maybe you're in groups of 4 or 5 other persons. So how much is that considered when somebody applies to a job in their portfolio, or when you look at their portfolio, and how should one highlights what they did for that specific project? I guess it goes for game jams, but all projects really, all group projects especially.
Yeah. So if I may start with this one, because it's really interesting, and I've seen a lot of portfolies with game jam games, and what I usually look for first is like, okay, you worked on this, that's great. What did you actually do on the project? Because it's a game and I don't know how many people worked on it. So I want to see like, I did this, and this. And then let's say that's the base of our conversation if we actually like get to it in the end. Because I want to see like, okay, how did you approach implementing it? What were the challenges while implementing it? How did you cooperate with the other people on the team? And things like that. So the more you outline that in the portfolio already, the more of that information I have, there is like, I guess, a bit of a better chance that we will understand like, the actual effort that you put into it, which can give you some, I'd say, advantage almost. Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously at the actual interview, like I said, we would go into the details because it's, at least in my experience, I really like to talk about the actual things that you have made and how did you approach them, rather than just like, very theoretically, just about, I don't know, programming or math stuff. Like there's definitely a place for that as well. But yeah, I'm always more interested in like how you approach actually implementing things and what challenges do you face. Anybody else wants to piggyback on this?
I could. I feel like it's hard with game jams as well. It's kind of this thing where it's like we look for experience, but you're applying to get experience, but you don't have experience. Sort of game jams is this cute little project. Ideally, it would be sort of a bigger project, right? If it's only game jams on the portfolio, it's I mean, if they're 2 weeks long and if the group is big enough and you took it seriously enough, of course, that's good to have on their portfolio. But as Jan said as well, sort of during the interview is where the questions really come in, and you ask more specifically, what did you actually do? What is your responsibility? What did you take ownership over during the game jam? And something that I think is really nice that they talk about, specifically when it comes to game jams, it's these technical problems that has sort of cooperative solutions. So it's like you have this super technical problem, but then you worked together with someone else to solve that problem. And then how did you solve that kind of thing? And it can also be vice versa, where it's, there's a issue with cooperation, and then how did you solve that? Maybe even, yeah. So, I mean, there might come up a question during an interview like that, which is, what kind of issues did you face and how did you solve them? And then again, with this whole compromise and being compassionate is really, really the good answer.
So it goes back to what we said earlier about soft skills and how you interact with the rest of the team, basically.
Yeah, that's really what Game Jams is super powerful for. I mean, also Game Jams is really powerful because you go from the whole process. You have a deadline that you have to meet, and then you're rapidly developing. You're showing that you can sort of work agile as well. You're iterating all of the time. It shows very many skills to have done a game jam. It's very, very good to at least have it, both for soft skills and hard skills and everything, rapid development and all of that.
Okay, thank you both of you. Just out of curiosity, a Futuregame, when you work on group projects, like you said, some game dev projects, how many people are participating? Like each group, how many people does it have?
So the groups can vary from 14 to like 21. So, and that's usually many different disciplines. There can be between 4 to 7 programmers and then some artists and whatnot. And these projects are full-time. So that's the difference between a game jam, is that we set the deadlines for alpha, beta, and gold. And then industry professionals are reviewing the games as well and giving their feedback. And you're working cross-disciplinary in a more professional setting. So there's a lot more, as Piotr mentioned as well, in the first 2 game projects, there's a lot of like ton of friction in the group because they're so far away from each other and they're different disciplines, and some people don't know how to compromise yet and all of that. So you get to trial by fire almost through that first half.
But then
Thank you.
Project 3, the first one in Unreal, 7 weeks, which is traditionally the best one during the education, and we are just gearing up for this. It kicks in May, and so if you follow our social media, you will see the results also there. Thank you, Simon. We are a bit over time now. I hope, Jan, can you stay a bit longer with us? Martin, can you stay?
I'm okay for now.
Okay.
I can stay for a question more.
Yes, so let's take another question from Jakub.
Okay. So I want to go back to algorithms for a while, and specifically AI algorithms for NPCs. So I know that in Unreal Engine right now behavior trees are used, right? So are there any others commonly used in production, or is just behavior trees for AI?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's like plenty of decision layers, right? You can have for AI.
Okay.
Like if you go back historically, you will find people just do it in all sorts of ways. Like one of the simpler ones you can do is just use state machines.
Yeah.
And I've seen projects that work on that, and for some games it's completely fine.
I'm already learning state machines. Yeah.
Nice. But that's like basically the complexity as it grows. Then also the complexity of the state machine grows, and it's not very sustainable, I would say, which is where the things like the behavior trees really come in handy, because you can more easily kind of structure it in a way, that you can just orient yourself, having like if depending on the implementation, you can have some type of inheritance, you can have subtrees, and it really helps to kind of like plug in the pieces of logic for the AI. Like let's say you have like a melee AI combat, right? So you have like a subtree, which is like, okay, the AI swings with a sword, and you can plug that into any archetype that you really need to, right? So it makes things like a whole lot easier. And then obviously, like there's things right now. Epic is working on the state tree technology, which is, funnily enough, combination of state machines and behavior trees. So taking the best of both areas, and I'm kind of myself also wondering like how, or actually, I want to see like more use cases of that type, because it's quite interesting. I don't know if you guys had a chance to play with it, but I would highly recommend like taking a look at it, because it is something that potentially could be used quite extensively in the industry as we go forward. So it feels like for me it's like the next step sort of this like state machine and behavior tree approach. And there is obviously a lot of other ones. There's this one, and I always forget this name. It's called the action planning something. Goal-oriented planning. Yes, thank you. That's the one. So just if you basically Google something like AI decision logic systems or algorithms, I think you will find a lot of interesting stuff on these topics.
Okay, because I know a few, but I was just interested which one you generally use. So state machines and behavior trees are the go-to for now.
I would say state machines maybe not so much anymore.
Okay.
I would say the standards is right now the behavior trees, and I can see some shift towards the state trees potentially.
Okay, thank you.
And then so I mean, behavior trees, from what I understand, is pretty like AAA standard. You're going into be an AI programmer at CD Projekt Red. You should be able to know what a behavior tree is, right? Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, there's other AI systems that I think are so cool as well. For example, Alien Isolation and Left 4 Dead uses like a director, if you've heard about that. It's an AI director. So there's not really like the entity itself, but there's a director that's looking across the map and then spawning in enemies or making the enemies move towards you in a certain way. So it's more of an abstract sort of overview, like a god looking at you and deciding where enemies should spawn and whatnot. And Alien Isolation does the same thing, where the alien itself is run through a behavior tree. But then an AI director is, scaring the player and placing out spawn points and, having the tail go around. There's actually a bug in Alien Isolation where the AI director gets confused and spawns two aliens If you've seen that on YouTube, it's pretty fun. So it's like two AIs working in tandem. And then goal-oriented action planning is also, I believe Sims uses that, for example. Like if you're hungry, it takes that as an action it needs to do and has that as a goal. So it's different values going up and down. So it depends also on what kind of game you're making as well to what AI you would use. But behavior trees is like super baseline. That's what you should know.
Exactly. And then with the things like the behavior trees, on AAA, usually the biggest problem I have seen is how to abstract the behavior trees in a way so it's not too general, so you still have like enough flexibility to prototype different types of AIs, but also so you don't have to rework a lot of these things every time for very similar AI archetypes. So it's always about also finding this like balance between like how much you generalize the state trees and how much leeway you have for the actual prototyping or for some very custom AIs, that have like well, let's say, you have like humans and then you have something completely different. And usually those things like go very much against each other because they have completely different set of behaviors. So yeah, it's also a tricky thing to get right, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer.
All right, thank you,
Jakub. And now mic goes to René.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So you have mentioned soft skills in interviews, but I am also interested about how to structure a resume. The market is highly competitive now, and I'd like to ask which ones would you suggest to include in a resume?
Good question. I think, depending on which job are you applying for, I would really try to highlight, I think also Martin mentioned it in the talk, like really try to highlight what is important for that specific position. So I don't know, let's say you're applying for a AI navigation engineer, right, specifically. So I would like to see you having experience with that. So try to dig up like, the relevant experiences from the projects that you actually worked on. And obviously like having, C++ experience is important, but we expect that from anybody who's going to apply to that position, right? I want to see like if it's a very specialized position, I want to see you having like the experience in the area that we're looking for. So, and ideally, I don't want to look for it. It should be like the first thing that pops up on you when you read the resume. So it's obvious. Okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, and let's obviously then later verify it. But it's important to like highlight the specific areas that you actually worked on that are relevant for the position. Anybody wants to add something?
Okay, I think we are moving on to Ignacio then.
Hi, I'm again from Argentina. I'm recently graduated, so this talk was really informative. Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Jan and Piotr. I have two questions. I'm really into engine development. I studied and I really fell in love with it. And so I have one question that is, what would you recommend to invest to improve my skills at engine development? I already made an OpenGL engine. And the other question is, with the current rise of Unreal Engine 5, do you think that the opportunity for custom-made engines in AAA games is going away, or do you think that it will continue?
I would love to answer, or do you want to answer?
Oh, go for it. I can follow up later.
So I teach the game engine specialization, and in my education, we actually make our game engines from scratch, and then we make our game projects in them at the game assembly. And like doing game engine stuff now and learning OpenGL is great. It's like the out of DirectX and Vulkan and all of those. It's a really good start for becoming sort of game engine specialist in the beginning. And then you learn all of the other ones and adapt those into the engine and whatnot. And the thing is, like, a lot of studios I see now are really not, even though they're using Unreal Engine, they have their engine developers on the teams, and then they're customizing Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is like completely exposed. You can go into the source code quite deep down, and having engine developers on those teams, especially in AAA teams that are transitioning to Unreal, like IO and stuff like that. And Playded, who made Inside and Limbo, if you're familiar with those games, they transition now into Unreal Engine, but all of them are like engine devs as well, even though they worked in Unity. But a lot of them know engine experience. So they're making Unreal into their own engine, their own custom engine kind of thing. So I think it's very, very attractive to have sort of core game engine skills, and there's definitely market for that. It's a niche enough, and as you get into rendering and tools and all of that stuff, you can get even further into it. And I mean, Epic Games is growing huge, and they need engine devs to further develop Unreal, right? So there's definitely opportunities for working with game engine.
I hope, Ignacio, it answered your question. Jan, you want to add?
Yes, I would just follow up a tiny bit. Okay, so how to like learn more things? Yeah, the easiest thing is just to dig into some commercial used engine and really like see how it works. If you can, obviously, like depending on how much is exposed. But yeah, just like play with it, try to find how things work, change things. It's always like sort of this experimentation approach is always good to learn something. And when it comes to actually if the sort of more proprietary engines have still space, it's a really interesting topic right now because like yeah, as I mentioned, like most of my career I worked on proprietary engines, and usually like the huge advantage it gives you is that you can dig into anything really, and you can directly change it, so you don't have to wait, for example, until let's say Unreal developers fix something or whoever else. So that's still a huge advantage. I don't think that will ever go away. So if you are trying to make something like really specific and complex, having a custom engine is like a really great help because you can make engine that really excels in doing the thing that you need it to do. You don't need it to do everything, as Unreal or Unity do, because those are like very generalized engines, and a lot of those systems that they make are like so generalized that they actually might not be able to accommodate something like extremely specific that you want to do. It was like something like if you think about like for example Techland where I worked at, like they also have a custom engine which is very much made with like first person parkour games in mind, and that like really it was like easy to make that sort of experience in them. If we would want to make something else, probably it would be quite difficult. So yes, if you have like a very specific experience in mind, it might still be advantages for you to actually have your custom engine. The problem and the hole that you get into eventually is that you just don't have the manpower as Epic does, and keeping up with the rate that the industry is evolving is very expensive, and you need like really top-notch developers and a lot of money to do that. So yeah, there's a small trade-off there, and it's I guess up to each company to kind of like figure out what's best for them in this, or each project as well, if it's something smaller.
Thank you, Jan. So
Thank you.
Question is coming from Mateusz.
Hello, Jan, Martin, and Piotr. Thank you very much for interesting interviews. And I have a question generally about maybe also game design. I think it's very related to gameplay because nowadays we have much legacy in AAA games, and there is some challenge, I think, to make something very innovative, and also that innovative and being good for mid customer who plays not 24 hours per day, but not spending that much time. And I'm thinking, what is your opinion about being innovative and versus being, making, for example, open world games with very repetitive tasks and gameplay mechanics? You know what I mean. What is your opinion in nowadays?
That's a good question. It's like as Martin said, like there's no need to really like innovate like all the time, right? A lot of the times it's just about the fact that you are making something that potentially was already done, but you can like put it a little bit or your own twist on it, or you like you really like take the formula and make something like really polished based on this formula with the different story, right? And it can work very very nicely. Then again, at times you do get some video games which like completely like redefine your expectations, and that's really great. But it is, I guess, something that a lot of times you can have to like consciously set out to do. And I'm going to throw in an example of my favorite game of all time, which is the game called Outer Wilds, if anybody knows it. And it's a game that the one guy made as his college project, and in the end, they built a bigger studio around it. But it is, a game that is very much like set around exploration and getting that like it's kind of an open world basically, but you are kind of like exploring on your own way, and the only way how you progress through the game is just by like finding knowledge, and then more knowledge you have, and once you have all the knowledge that you need, you can resolve the game in 5 minutes. But you spend like 30 hours, figuring out this question that is in the game, and that for me is like a really good example of like a thing that they took inspiration from, I believe, one of the Zelda games, and just built a whole new game around this one experience, which was, from what I remember, the big inspiration was like in Zelda, you sometimes have like these posters on walls with in-game locations, and they really like the fact that you can just find this and then go in the world, explore, and find this place that is on the picture. And that's literally what Outer Wilds is about, if you take a look at the whole like concept. And it's so they took something that already exists, but they put a little bit of a different spin on it, and it just made for me like the best game that I will probably ever play, like honestly. So yeah, I think like no need to reinvent the wheel, but like I guess search for inspiration where you can, and like you use that. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I kind of went on a rant a little bit.
I would like
Very
to go
good
on.
answer, thank you.
Yeah, I want to go on a rant a bit, and then I will leave, unfortunately. But like I did talk about, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but then we see sort of similar games coming out, and it feels like things aren't, innovating as much. But that's the beauty of like indie games, teams that are smaller that can sort of innovate these really niche and cool ideas. I mean, we see genres spiking up. For example, like with Vampire Survivors, they made a super simple arcade game for €2, and now tons of clones that, I mean, some of them arguably a lot better, that improve upon the concept kind of thing. And we saw that with PUBG. PUBG was, I don't think it was the first battle royale game. There was other battle royale games before that as well.
I can talk about that because I worked at the company with the first battle royale. So just think.
Oh, you can. Okay, that's super awesome, actually. But yeah, so Jan, your company worked on that, and then PUBG made it, and then Fortnite is the most popular game ever, right? So it's like you're taking the concept and you're developing upon it, kind of like that. And to innovate like that, there's always people who want to do that, who are super hungry, willing to take the risk for it, and that's super awesome, and absolutely go for it. If you have a game idea, then go for it. The perfect first game to make ever is an MMORPG with your own mechanics and physics system and game engine, because then you get humbled about how much there is to actually do. You know what I mean? So I feel like innovation will always be there as long as there's game developers, and it's not gonna end. Even though we see repetitive games coming out all of the time, we will see those gems pop up every once in a while. So I'm hopeful for innovative games.
Martin, did I hear right that you have to leave?
Yes, I will leave right now.
Okay, so please let me just thank you for this webinar and for leading it. And I didn't expect, that I will be listening with, empathy and passion. Unfortunately, I see Bartosz Barlowski left. I wanted Bartosz to leave you the stage for the last question, but
Oh, no, it's okay, cool. I was just a quick question, kind of open question. In the perfect
Bartosz, stay with us, okay? So for a second, let me just thank you, Martin, until the end. Martin, thank you for passionate and story-driven talking about algorithms. So
thank you.
And we can stay, maybe Janek, if you can stay with us 10 more minutes, will it be fine, or am I?
Okay, yeah, I think I can do like 5 to 10-ish.
Yes.
Then I will have to go.
Because I just wanted to let Bartosz ask his questions. So brace for impact and buckle up, because Bartosz is authorized Epic trainer, and he's occasionally working with us. So Bartosz, ask your question, please.
Yeah, quick question. In the perfect storm, in a team environment, what do people tend to do? The best practices you've seen across, like leveling up or specializing in Unreal, specializing. Generally, what you've seen happening in the industry. Share your thoughts, and thank you for the webinar. It's been amazing. I just want to share that. It's been really cool to hang out here, and yeah, thanks, Jan.
Okay, so hopefully I understood correctly, but if I'm going to think about like what are sort of the values I see in people that kind of tend to go the furthest in the company, I would again refer to that talk from Colin, because I basically that's what it covers. But for me, like, okay, if I'm talking about the gameplay engineers, and what I usually set out as even at other jobs as my like personal things that I look for in those people, and how I sort of like let's say decide if somebody like goes upwards in the ladder, gets promoted. Usually it was people who as gameplay engineers, for one, obviously they understand like what makes great gameplay mechanics. They can also design in a way, so it's not like they just take this passive role in the team and they just like do whatever the designer tells them to. It's about them actually cooperating with the designer directly, being part of the process from the beginning, feedbacking design, just like sort of coming up with it together in the end, and also providing that like technical feedback early on in the process, because it's very important to know your constraints as well at the beginning. And then just like sort of as they go through this process, like it's a very much of like a team cooperation. It's not that the programmer closes themselves for a month, and they make something. It's that they make something, check it together, evaluate, iterate, and at the end of it, they have like a perfectly functioning thing that is usually fun, more fun, rather than if they would do it in isolation. So basically, yeah, the people who are kind of able to kind of work like this, I have found to be like the most successful in a way. And I think like if you prove you can do this, and that's kind of like the baseline, right? And then as you kind of move up the hierarchy in the companies, it's all about, I guess, taking more responsibility. And I think I haven't touched that yet, but it's also quite interesting. What I found that really works is like there's the saying like, do the job you want to be doing. And that is literally how I became like lead, because I just like saw problems that needed to be solved, so I went and solved them, and then eventually they started paying me for it, basically, because just nobody else was taking care of them, right? So I took the responsibility proactively and tried to solve the issues in the team. Obviously, like I told somebody about it. It's not that I just went completely rogue. But eventually they were like, okay, yeah, obviously you can do this. You have good relationships with the other leads, and it's just kind of like became naturally. So I would say that type of like proactivity, cooperation, and having the good understanding of game design is one of the most important things for me. Thank you for a great question.
And thank you, Jan. And sorry for over-exploiting you, Jan, but we have Aliyah here holding his or her hand since the very beginning of this queue. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Yes, thank you for hosting this webinar. And my question was, how did you find your passion for specifically for gameplay engineering versus all of the other specializations? Because we've been speaking about specialization. And if you couldn't do this, then what would you have chosen instead?
Ooh, that's a good question. So as I mentioned, I started like completely outside of gameplay, right? It was fine. It just wasn't something that would really spark the passion inside of me. And basically, I think when it really like kicked for me was when I was like mid-level programmer on gameplay, and I really like work on some feature that I kind of like owned from the beginning. And I really like became like, okay, like I really want to make this as good as possible, right? So I just took sort of the ownership of that whole thing and like pushed it forward, both on the design side and on the technical side. And I don't know, it just like really sparked something inside of me that I really like enjoyed seeing the impact of the things that I was doing directly in the game, and how they like influence this like whole huge project, right? So, and just like seeing that people liked it as well, that really helps to kind of feel some sense of satisfaction. So I guess it kind of like happened naturally. I just, I like playing video games, so I think I kind of naturally wanted to make something in the game that is the thing that people actually, play with. And working on like, combat systems and things like that was like, I guess as close to what I like to do in as a player, let's say. And yeah, and a lot of the times, I kind of tend to draw from the games that I really like in the actual development. When it comes to like inspiration for different systems, I usually when I'm making a mechanic, I tend to look at, okay, how other games do it first, like to avoid the problems that they have encountered, or I just take it like as a baseline, of like, okay, I want to make this mechanic. These games did it. Okay, let's take a look at it. They're still the best they did, and just let's try to push it even further. That's kind of the approach that I'm trying to take with this stuff. So it's just like all of this together. It's just like, I don't know. It just felt fun for me. And if I couldn't do this, I would probably just be a game designer because I've found that to be a lot of fun as well. Because for me, the most important thing is just to make games that are fun, whatever that means. I'm in no way I'm the most like technical or expert programmer you can find. There's like so many better people at CD Projekt than myself at programming. For me, the main important thing is like I want to make games, and programming is for me like one way to achieve that goal, right? So yeah, if eventually we will just be doing everything in blueprints, I'm more than happy to do that as long as I can keep making video games. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Jan, very much. And Alia, this needs to make for an answer because we are wrapping up. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. And probably soon we will have another webinars with CDPR. I see the need for the game programming as well. We have 1,000 people registered today, and over 150 were present during. So we definitely will try to make another one and follow up. Jan, thank you again for showing up and staying so long with us. Thank you, guys, and see you around. Stay tuned with our channels. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice day. Bye-bye.